not to be caught on the side just of the government and emphasize the aspirations of the people in Egypt. Unfortunately, I think that the administration has been going back and forth in recent days about whether to stay out of this the way they did in Tunisia or not get caught behind the ground. And unfortunately, the mixed messages are coming through to the people on the ground. And the administration seems to be driven more by fear than strategy. They're afraid of alienating Mubarak, but they're also afraid of being behind the curve.
Jamie, what should they say? What should they say?
Well, I think they should make clear that it's not just economic, political, and social change. There has to be a transition in which the government of Egypt becomes a representative government. That means not supporting the move from the father to the son. Kemal Mubarak is thought of as the next presidential candidate. It means having proper elections. It means a whole number of steps that would be supportive of democratic values. And I think so far the administration has not been willing to cross that Rubicon for fear that Mubarak will end up in charge and we will have alienated an ally.
And from the Arab street perspective, if you will, over the last few days, we've heard a lot of anger coming from the Middle East, Jamie, as you well know, because protesters and demonstrators are saying, look, the United States gives more than $1 billion a year in military aid to this dictatorial government. You have not come out and clearly indicated that you support those who are fighting and protesting for democracy and freedom and less repression. So what is the net result for America and the Middle East at the end of all of this?
Well, I think a lot of this depends on how events unfold in the coming days and weeks. But the key point here is that this is a tough call. It is always hard to decide whether to support a close ally and friend like Mubarak has been, or whether to support forces on the street. But we're the United States of America. We're a country that's been built and created on democratic values. And if we're going to take a risk, I think we're always better off taking the risk that we are on the side of those pushing democratic values. President Mubarak is not a democratic president of a democratic country. He's an authoritarian ruler whose rules in ways from our foreign policy standpoint have been helpful to us. But if we want to stand up for what this country is all about and what people around the world expect us to be all about, we have to come down more clearly on the side of those in the streets who are fighting. And this is not an Islamic revolution that many have feared. For now, this is a revolution generated, if it becomes a revolution, from non-Islamic sectarian.
Jamie, we're going to have to interrupt. We have to go to a break. We're very sorry, but stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with continuing coverage of these protesters in Egypt.
All right, we were going to take a break, Carol, but of course we just heard shots fired. So that changed our plans a bit.
I can't tell whether it's the shot because they were shooting tear gas into the crowd, and it sounded similar to that, but we don't know exactly what that was.
This sounds a little different. I can't tell with 100% certainty.
Do we still have Ben Wiedemann on the line? No.
All right, we're going to, and they're protesters, by the way, this is telling us a little bit more about what might be going on off camera there. Protesters rushing in the opposite direction of where that, what sounded like shots being fired came from.
Do we have Defense Secretary Cohen with us still?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, from your perspective, you're watching these pictures, you're hearing these sounds. What does it sound like to you?
Well, from my perspective here, they sound like gunshots, but they could be the firing of tear gas. I have no way of knowing, but just looking at the movement of the people, it looked like they were running away from those sounds. And so it may be gunfire either over their heads or toward them, and they are rushing away from it. At least that appears to be the case.
Let's listen some more, Secretary Cohen.
We can confirm those were gunfire. That was gunfire for the first time heard from our vantage point, our live position in Cairo.
Of course, we don't know where the gunfire is coming from, but we do know that the Egyptian military has been on the streets there for at least an hour or two.
Mm-hmm. These are people defying the curfew, Carol, as well. And these are people basically saying, you know, even if the military is calling on all of us to go home, barricade ourselves at home for the next 13 hours, we're not going to do it. Even though they are welcoming some of these military elements in the streets of Cairo, it's anyone's guess at this point how this will evolve, because this is not just 3-4 days of anger. This is years and years of political and economic frustration that's boiling over.
Yeah, so many people are unemployed. They just want a better life. That's why they're protesting on the streets. And Secretary Cohen, if this is real gunfire, which we believe that it is, this has taken a disturbing turn, you know, from an Egyptian perspective and also from the perspective of the United States.
Yes, in fact, it could turn even more violent, and the reaction to the gunfire might energize the protesters in greater numbers with greater intensity. So it's hard to project how this is going to play out, which is one reason why I suggest that it be important for President Mubarak to address the Egyptian people, to lay out what the future is going to be in terms of meeting many, if not all, of their demands in terms of greater freedom, more democracy, greater opportunity. I think he needs to do that in order to satisfy the people that change is going to take place.
Secretary
Hopefully
Cohen,
it'll take... Sure.
We're going to interrupt you because we have Ben Wiedemann on the phone, and we went from him because he's right there, more word on this gunfire. Ben, what can you tell us?
The crowd that you saw just a little while ago around the Army vehicle has now gone behind our building, and they're attacking the police station that normally guards the Ministry of Information and the main TV building in Cairo. It appears they're shooting live rounds in addition to lots of tear gas that has really just, you know, inundated our office for quite some time now. And I think this is what is inevitable when there's a breakdown in Egypt, is that much of the anger is focused on government institutions like the Ministry of Information, like the police that have played such a central role in trying to put down, but clearly failing, these protests. So you can hear the gunfire outside.
But Ben, this is Hala. Just to be clear, who is firing the shots right now, and what are protesters doing? I mean, they're in smaller numbers. We can see it there from the live images. But how are the protesters reacting to this latest development?
Well, what they're trying to do is actually ransack the police station. The firing you're hearing is coming from, as far as we can tell, it's coming from the police who have been deployed in large numbers around the Ministry of Information since these protests began on Tuesday. You may see less demonstrators in the live picture from the front of our office, but I'm at the back of our office, which overlooks this police station. And
right now, Ben, it's a mixed bag of police, of riot police, and of the military. And clearly, demonstrators still out there on the street. We're going to stand by, Ben Wiedemann. We're going to get back to you in a moment. All these breaking developments, Carol, out of Egypt, the most populous country in the Arab world, a barometer of what the Arab street is thinking, feeling, and very often an indicator of what might happen elsewhere.
It's just a shame, you know, from firing tear gas to firing real bullets. A very scary situation. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more.